Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the PR Style Guide podcast. We are excited to be back yet again, and we're really grateful to everyone who tunes into the show. It is growing, and we are just really excited to sit down with these fabulous guests that we have. And so, before we jump into today's episode, we do want to start with just encouraging you all, if you have not already, go to our website, prstyleguide.com, and make sure that you click on the 10 tips to a winning pitch. So we know that as PR professionals, we are looking to perfect that pitch. We're looking to connect with journalists. We're looking to just stand out. So this is a great resource for anyone in the communications, PR, industry. And again, we're really excited to continue to bring these great resources to you all as well. So with that being said, I was so excited. I did not even say who I am. Welcome back. I'm Danielle Williams, one of the co-hosts here at the PR Style Guide podcast. And with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to my amazing co-host to introduce our guest for today. Robin, throwing it over to you.
I'm Robin Newton, and I'm super excited because today we are joined by Janay Tyson. Janay is actually one of my mentees, and she and I connected. We both went to Elon. We are Elon University alum. Shout out to all the Elon alums. But we did not know each other. She is a couple of years younger than me. I'll just say a couple. Um, and so we connected years later after I graduated. But she is one of the inspirations to me when I think that I'm being young and hip and staying with the times. She is the one who makes sure that I'm like, okay, she checks me and she's like, okay, no, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, okay, thanks. But let's get into her bio, and I'm going to read a good portion of it because it's amazing. She's young and she already has done such amazing things, so I don't want to miss anything. Um, Janay is a North Carolina native, Raleigh girl. Shout out to all the Raleigh people. We have some Raleigh fans. And she is a Elon University alum. She interned with a PR agency after graduating. And shortly after, she did a Verizon fellowship called the Verizon adfellow, pretty prestigious fellowship. So she has that experience. She also went to work for a PR agency following graduation. She has skills in branding and communications and advertising. She currently lives in New York. So that's a big deal to be a North Carolina girl moving to the Big Apple, right? You can often find Janay hosting curated special events throughout the Big Apple, trying new restaurants and bars, and creating content across all social media platforms as at Just Janay. And that is with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Ys. So don't miss it. Janay is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Shout out to all my sorors. Is an active alumna of her alma mater and currently serves as head of production for Swap Sakan. Did I say it right? Swap Sakan, a unique sustainable shopping experience in Brooklyn, as well as membership and outreach manager for Girl Code NYC, a social networking group for women of color dedicated to finding their tribe across New York and New Jersey. And her 9 to 5 is as a account manager at Havas. And Havas, she does a lot of health marketing and advertising. Correct, Janay? Did I
Yes,
miss anything?
you did it. So
All
thank you.
right.
Well,
Awesome.
welcome to the
Let's get into
PR
the meat
Style.
and potatoes.
Yes.
All
Thank
right, Janae. So we're going to kick it off with our favorite question. At least I know it's my favorite question. When did you first fall in love with communications?
So I would say for me it was around my sophomore year. I came into college not really knowing where I'd want to be, what I'd want to major in. I didn't really have any specific interest that really jumped out to me. And I was actually pretty lost, I would say, by the end of my freshman year. And so my sophomore year, I was just talking to friends. I was also in Res Life at the time. And one of my managers was like, "You love to talk and like engage with people. You're very social. Why don't you look into communications?" And so I said, okay. And so I ended up taking a Com 101 course, and it pretty much gives you an overview of the communications industry from media to advertising to public relations. And I'll never forget, I pretty much slept through the entire course. I'm not gonna lie. But there was the one section where we got to public relations and reputation management. And it really jumped out to me because it basically, in my mind, was damage control. And I was like, I'm pretty much
Mm.
the mediator between a lot of my friend groups and, family. And so I'm like, I do that already. Why not make a career out of it? And after that, I mean, the rest was history. I started taking coursework. I got multiple internships. I was able to provide, find mentorship as well and attend conferences, get scholarships. And it just really escalated from there. And I feel like that was really the path that God set me on. So the fact that it started there just from one course that I took and then evolved to where I am today, I know this is the field that I'm supposed to be working in.
So, who was your professor, if you don't mind me asking?
It was Professor Ken Gaither. He's
Okay.
actually the dean now, I think, of the comm school. And he really helped guide and shape my experience when I, realized this is something I wanted to do. He really pushed me and also helped me get scholarship money. So really big shout out to him because that really changed the course of my college experience and really figuring out like what is a career path that might work for me.
Yeah,
Wow.
I love that. As
So
a
Oh,
when you were there, were y'all like living in the what we used to call the lab lounge?
yes, yes.
Spent a lot of time in the lab.
A lot of late nights in that comm school. So I'm grateful
Editing,
for them.
editing, editing.
Yes, yes. And writing papers and, recording things. I was also in PRSSA. So spent a
mm.
lot of hours there, but very grateful. And I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today without the mentors, the professors, and the resources that I got from the comm school.
And you mentioned Janay before you felt like really lost. Is that what you were saying? So
Yes.
what was your major? Did you have a major before that
So
you
I Yes. So originally I thought I was going to go into like psychology or sociology. And to be honest, I'm not a very big math and science heavy girl. So once I realized like, oh, a lot of these classes are very, math and science centric, I also knew I'd probably have to go to grad school, and I was just like, "Ugh, this is not working for me. This is not something that, I'm necessarily super passionate about." And so I had an advisor who, to be honest, just told us to pick whatever classes. And, again, I didn't really know where I fit, but then I signed up for that Com 100 class, and that was really what did it for me.
mm, nice. It's funny. So my degree is actually in psychology, but now I'm in PR. So
Interesting. But
yeah.
see,
Know that. I learned something new about you.
yeah,
I thought
see,
I
it
had
is still
mentioned.
relevant though.
Yeah. It absolutely
No, I
is.
was gonna
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Janay.
No, I was just going to say it is because I love, it's important for us to know as communicators how people operate, what drives them, what motivates them. So I'm like, it's all tied in. And it's so funny looking back now because I'm like, a lot of the skills overlap.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though my degree is in psychology, it's still research, which is what, you have to do
Yes.
research in
Mhm.
PR. We use the APA style guide all the time,
Yeah.
in psychology. But I've always loved like sales and even communication. So I feel like PR is kind of the best of all those things. I love research. Like I said, I love the comms part. I love talking to people. But yeah, so I started off where you were like, "Ooh, no, let me get away from this." That's where I started. But now I've drifted over. I feel like I found my calling, in
Yeah.
PR and comms. But that's funny.
Remember
I
you
love-
telling me that now. Yeah. I'm ready to talk fashion because Janae, Danielle, you might not know, but I stay hitting her up in her DMs. I'm like, where did you get that?
We love to talk
And
about it.
we love to talk fashion, and she's constantly sending me links. She should be an Amazon ambassador. I hope she is, because she
But
stays rocking a cute fit that she got off
that's
of
crazy because
Amazon.
this two piece that I'm wearing is actually from Amazon, which is so funny. So shout out to them.
Go ahead.
So, with that being said, what is one fashion staple that you would consider a go-to for you?
I would say I'm an accessories girl. So I feel like whether I'm wearing like a necklace or some hoop earrings or a statement earring, that is probably my biggest go-to. Like I'm the type of person, if I walk out the house with no earrings on, I feel naked and I will literally go back and change.
Mm.
Because I have to have some type of accessory on. So I think for me, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, I also love bags, which I know you do too. Um, so I would say it's just accessories overall, but it's either gonna be some type of jewelry or a bag.
Yes, I do love bags. And for those who don't know, my Instagram is Clutch Queen. Clutch
Mhm.
has taken on a whole new name, and definition, I should say, in the urban world. But I was Clutch Queen before it became an
Yes.
even saying, and it was really about purses.
Mhm.
But now everyone's like, how did you get that Instagram so early? I've been Clutch Queen forever.
Love that.
You. Yes, I love fashion as well. So I'm gonna have to check you out. So make sure y'all go and follow Janae. It was with 4 or 5 Y's. What was it? Just Janae?
5 wide.
Okay. Y'all go find her, just Janae
Yeah,
with the 5 Y's. Okay.
please. And I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok, so please come support. And I'll always try to put people on. That's my biggest thing.
Okay. So since
Yeah,
you were
you do,
in,
and you do that well. She's constantly like sharing different products or events, and I love that. I try to do similar things on my page, but it's all about, like you said, just supporting, putting people on, supporting the things, the brands, the people, the shows,
Right.
entertainers, that you value, and that you think are worthy of people knowing about. The
Mhm.
small people don't get enough, and I say small, not meaning, obviously literally small, but small as in the small name, don't, not big name yet. They don't get the type of recognition sometimes that they deserve. So it's
Agree.
amazing how our social media platforms can be that for some people.
Mhm.
absolutely.
Definitely agree.
All right, Janae. So tell us what led you to start your own PR company, and was it challenging to get things off the ground running?
Yes. So I would say during the pandemic, that really was the Kickstarter for me. Because like everyone else, we were all like trying to figure out what to do, low key losing our minds a little bit. And I think for me, it was really formed out of a need for an outlet. During this time, I was living in New York, and then I ended up having to come back to North Carolina just because I was in between jobs. The state of the world was very chaotic, and I don't have any close family in New York. So while I was home, it was a really difficult transition, and I needed something that was just for me, to be honest. And so at this time, a lot of people were starting to promote small Black and women owned businesses, which is something that I've been passionate about. I've been supporting. I think when I moved to New York, I got it even closer to it because there were so many businesses around me that I knew were great that weren't getting the amplification they needed. And again, as a communications, marketing, advertising, PR professional, I realized that the big gap that a lot of them I saw was the lack of knowledge about resources, whether it was how to use your social media properly, how to post, what tools you could be using to, promote your ads across Instagram, Facebook. A lot of people had a great product, but they didn't know how to get it out there. And so I decided that this was a great opportunity, not only for me to make some extra money, but also just to use my skills to benefit my community. I'm very big about supporting Black women and small owned businesses. As a Black woman, is super important for me. And I want to see us win. So it really allowed me to, again, use my skills, but for the betterment of my community. And so from there, I actually just started telling people, hey, I also do content. But in addition to that, if you need help with your social media, your marketing, your branding, I can help. And as I was starting to connect with these small businesses I was purchasing from, some people took me up on those offers. I also had a couple friends who were starting to produce businesses and products that they wanted to launch. And so I really started to just take on some freelance clients and, help people figure out what is your brand voice? Who are you speaking to? Who are your audiences? And how are you getting your product in front of the right people who don't even know that you exist? And like Robin said, again, a lot of times people have a great, vision or product or idea, but my belief is that sometimes in our communities we don't have the knowledge that gets us the exposure that we deserve. So that's where I seek to bridge the gap and really help us again amplify our brand so that they can get more business or whatever else that their goals are that they're trying to achieve.
So would you consider it a PR company as Danielle said, or would it be more like a marketing and advertising company? And really talk about the difference between the two, because you have worked in PR and you've worked in advertising. And a lot of people outside of the comms world have no idea what the difference between the two is. And people will even come to you and say, hey, can you do PR for me? And really they're talking about advertising or vice versa. And so let's talk about that a little bit.
I agree. So I think now I've kind of moved towards saying I'm more of like a brand consultant, or I like to do brand strategy consulting because, I don't want to limit myself to just one facet. Like I can do social media marketing for someone, but I can also show you tools on Google to help advertise your product.
Mhm.
So I wanted, as I gained more experience and kind of transitioned in between PR and advertising, which I'll highlight the differences I learned for myself, and then from there, I was able to pull different skill sets based on what people needed. So I've tried to make it more general in terms of consulting so that I'm fitting the needs of whatever they're looking for. Or honestly, once they tell me, where they're at within their business, I can also determine, okay, actually, you do need help on your social media, or maybe you need to work on your website. And then I can kind of tailor my services towards that. And I think for me, what I've noticed the biggest difference between advertising and PR is that, well, advertising, PR, and marketing. Marketing is really focused on like the brand strategy, the goals, the vision of what a brand is, and how people think of it, how they want to put themselves in the landscape, versus public relations really focuses on the reputation management. So really thinking about, okay, a brand is established, but how are people talking about it on social media? How are people engaging with it? What are the positive things that they're doing in the community or, within sustainability, and how can we get them more exposure so that people are seeing that positive, press coverage? Or it could even be, how are they making a name for themselves amongst their competitors, and like, are they a brand leader? Versus advertising is really focused on, we are helping sell the product, we are creating assets, we are creating commercials, we are creating ads to where when someone sees our ad, they're clicking on something to go purchase or to go drive sales. So I think it comes down to the goals and the strategy, where advertising is really more KPI driven in terms of sales and, bigger business goals and like, the bottom dollar, versus public relations in my mind is more like getting impressions and exposure that brings positive publicity to the brand, versus marketing is really more so, okay, we have this brand, we have this product, how do we want it to be, launched into market, and how do we want it to be perceived in order to drive back to the brand's overall strategy, vision, etc.
I think that's a great explanation of it. I'm stealing some of these.
Because it's hard to explain, and I feel like
It is.
people make it so fluffed up, and so I'm like, to me this is the simplest way to do it. Marketing is like, okay, here's a product, let's put it, we're developing the product, we're developing the overall messaging, and we're putting it, we are creating what's going to be a market. Advertising says, okay, here's your product, let's put it in these different channels to reach the audience that you want to reach. And PR says, okay, we have a great product, it's starting to get buzz, how can we make sure that more people know about it and know the great things about it? And how do we keep the conversations managed, whether it's positive or negative press?
Yeah.
And how do we stay ahead of it? I think is kind of the big main differences.
Yeah, I would agree totally.
Wow. Go, Janay. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Robin, you me next? Next question for me? Okay.
I feel like I've been talking away, but I've got more questions if you want me to go next.
No, no. Okay. So, do you prefer working with individual clients versus or companies?
Hmm, that's kind of tough. I will say now I'm work I would say I guess when I'm working within the capacity that I have now, I work with a few main clients on behalf of the brand.
Mhm.
Versus when I'm doing some of that more freelance work, I'm working more so directly with the brand. I think there's pros and cons to both. I like working directly with the brands because again, you get a better insight into like who is that actual person behind the product? You know, what do they value? What do they care about? What's their story? And to me, that makes it easier for me to promote because I have a direct story to tell. Versus when you're working with clients, you know, you're getting a lot of things filtered down, whether it's coming from their leadership, whether it's coming from, you know, their boss, and they have a very specific end goal, you know, that's very tailored. You have a very specific brief on what you have to do and you can't really stray outside of it. So I think working with brands, which I like, again, gives me more flexibility to help shape the brand, and having more, again, like a closer touch to the founder or, you know, the people who really make up that brand versus working with a client. They're, you know, one of many, essentially.
So I want to talk a little bit, not comms related, but life related.
Mhm.
Moving from New York, from North Carolina to New York, let's talk about it. How
Yeah.
was that? Was it what were you say what would you say were the challenges and what were some of the highlights?
Yeah. So as I mentioned previously, I don't have any direct family in New York. So I knew that I wanted to move there probably by my junior year, but it was one of those things where it's like, oh, like it's a dream far off, you know, but didn't really know what would be the actual details that would make it happen. Because I didn't really have, you know, the finances to just jump out there with no job. You know, I don't come from my parents, you know, really support me and will help me in whatever way, but it's not like my parents are like, okay, you go, we'll pay for your rent and do all these things. Like they say, you want to go, we will support you. But I knew it was on me to figure out, you know, how I need to hustle and make opportunities happen. So I was really excited when opportunities presented itself for me to come. That's a whole different story I could go into of how I ended up in New York, but I'm gonna just say it was God ordained. And he really set up all the steps for me to get to New York in the time that I did and to, you know, have a successful foundation. I think the biggest thing for me that I wasn't expecting was the culture shock. And people make it seem like, you know, you have to go to a different country to experience that. But I'm a Southern girl. So moving to the North and experiencing Northeastern culture and, you know, experiencing a lot of different neighborhoods and environments was so very different from how I grew up, you know, in a smallish town, very homogenous. Like, you know, you went to the same middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, and you had a very tight knit, close community. And I will say there's still community in New York, but it just felt very different and foreign for me because I had to start from scratch. So I think some of the lows and the hardest parts were the weather. To be honest, which we talked about a little bit before this, but honestly, the weather differences were really a struggle. And also things like seasonal depression, where, you know, I was used to having more sunshine and more greenery around me. And it's like all these buildings, very rainy, very cloudy, and getting adjusted to that was very difficult. And just the homesickness, to be quite honest. My first year was definitely the hardest. And as I got more community, it got better. I think also the transit. I got lost so many times, and you know, my phone might have died a couple times. I had a couple panic attacks, but after that, I got lost one too many. I learned my lesson, and I said, "You're gonna find your way around because we're not doing this." Um, and then I think positives for me, which is again why I've loved living there for the past 4 years now, is the variety. I'm a type of person, I like to do a lot of different things. I like to, you know, experience a lot of different vibes, whether it's cultural, whether it's fun, whether it's social. I like to have my hand in a lot of different things. So the fact that I could go to Chinatown, I could go to Little Italy, I can go to Harlem, I can be in Brooklyn, I can experience this thing, experience that thing, I like having a lot of different options. Whether I choose to do everything or nothing, I liked having that variety versus, again, where I grew up, it was very specific, and you didn't really stray outside of it. You didn't really have exposure to outside of it. So I think that I've just been able to grow and get more exposure to just different types of people, different lifestyles, different cultures. And it's really honestly helped me grow up, and just become more independent, because it really is on you at the end of the day when you move out on your own. And nobody talks about that transition, as a new grad. And it's not just, some people, it's like, oh, they want to leave home and they can't. Some people, they want to get that job and they don't. But I think when you do take a chance on yourself and you're actually figuring it out every single second, nobody talks about the stress or the anxiety that comes with that, and the challenges you face with, like, it is up to you. So I think it's really helped me grow as a person, truthfully. And as people say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I do actually believe that, because it's not for the weak. And I've had friends who came the first summer that we both moved there and they left within a couple months. And so I feel very blessed to be here and to, again, have the community and the opportunities that I've had that have allowed me to sustain and, keep making it. So that is my spiel.
No, kudos to you on that,
Yeah.
because I always say New York is a different beast. And as you said, it's not for the faint at heart.
Mm-mm.
So you gotta be able to roll with the punches when you
Yes,
move there. And a lot of punches come.
yes. On the daily.
Hmm. So, Janay, you mentioned community and a couple things. So, in your bio, it was mentioned how you host curated events. So, how did you go from you're here, you don't know anyone, to what did that community process look like? And then not just community is, but now you're hosting events. So just kind of tell us a little bit about that. I'm very curious.
Yes. So, in general, I've always been a very social person. And I think that also one of the gifts that God has given me is the spirit of connection. And so I've always been blessed to know different types of people, be kind of plugged into different communities. Um, but I think that for me, again, moving here and not knowing anyone, I kind of had this innate feeling of like it's sink or swim. So it's like I have to figure it out. I have to find my own community and I need to find people. That's something that's very important to me. Some people say, like, oh, you don't need people, you can make it on your own. I don't believe that. I believe that we were created to be in community with other people. So for me, really the biggest thing is I had to put myself out there. And a lot of people are scared to do it, but I feel like the easiest and best way to make friends is you got to just go to stuff. I went to so many events by myself. If someone posted something in a group chat and it looked cool or interesting, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go put myself out there, see who I meet. And honestly, through that, I really continued to just meet this person who then you like that person, you start hanging out, they invite you and to this event and you meet their homegirl and then vice versa. So thankfully I was able to find like a little crew that first summer I moved there. Unfortunately, a lot of them moved after the summer, but by the time the fall hit, I had got accepted into my fellowship program, and that cohort was another sense of community. So I had, 30 something other people who were all transplants. We're at a very specific stage in our life, and then we're connecting based on that experience. I also have to shout out Girl Code NYC, which I know y'all mentioned in the bio, but it's basically a social networking group for women of color in the New York and New Jersey area. And I really give them big credit to finding my girl group and my tribe, because, I I'll never forget, I posted an event that I really wanted to go to. It was a black owned bar crawl during Juneteenth, and I was like, this looks fun, this looks lit, and I had no one to go with. And so I said, you know what? Let me just put it out there and see who might want to come. And one of my best girlfriends now, shout out to my girl Ayana, she was one of the few people that DM'd me and said, hey, I also want to go to this. Would you want to go together? And then from there, we got a little crew and we hung out literally the rest of the summer. So I think it was just from really putting myself out there. And then again, you meet this person who connects you to this person. You go to this, event, and then you meet that person. Or, you just find different experiences that you want to be a part of, and then you also find your community that way. So I think that was something else that helped me, was like thinking about what am I interested in and trying to go to more of those spaces, but then also just putting myself out there and saying, if you want community, you're going to have to build it. And you have to also be okay with putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, being open. And I always tell people finding friends is also like dating. You're going to hit some duds. You know, you might meet that homegirl and you're like, we're never linking again. And that's okay. That's okay. But you tried it, you put yourself out there, and then you keep going a couple more dates and you'll find your bestie. So that is literally what happened for me. And I think that, you know, again, just knowing that it was something that I needed and finding a way to actively seek it out, I was able to meet those people and make those connections. And then from there, it really was also some of the organizations and groups that I was a part of. Like Delta also was a great connector. And so I got connected to a lot of folks in the D9 community who also got me plugged in. And then from there, it was just, I kept meeting people, you know, and exchanging information, getting contacts. And then it really just became, you know, I had my own community. And I said to myself, I love hosting, I love bringing people together. I feel like I know good vibes. Like I'm a very big music person. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just post something, plan it, and see if people show up. And people started coming, you know, and then people started asking, like, because I do certain annual things. Like for my birthday, I do a birthday picnic every single year. And so it was like, it started with like 20 friends. And then it was like 30 friends. And then this year it was like, oh, we had a crew. And then we went and did a whole nother thing. And people were like, how do you know so many people? And I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Um, but at the same time, you know, that has really, I think, helped me. And so I've been able to get my name out there, get more exposure. I also feel like I'm at a place because I'm settled now where people are starting to think of me for things. So, for example, I just hosted my first event series, which was really exciting. And it was great because I got connected to that opportunity through someone who said, I thought of you for this. And so the fact that I feel like I'm getting established now to where people are tapping me for things, people are inviting me to things, people are, you know, requesting me for things, I'm getting to a point where, okay, I feel like I'm getting the traction. And I think as I've gotten more opportunities, it's given me the confidence to say, you should really step out and like try to do something with this. And that's really where, you know, the event curation came to play. I can kind of be that go-to girl, which is where I'm really trying to establish myself. And I think that because of that, I've been able to kind of build a following and, you know, really build that community for myself.
The key for me with this conversation is y'all got to get out the house.
Yeah.
You
Right.
cannot stay in your house and expect to meet people, whether it's friends or a man. Either
Right.
way, you got to leave your home.
You must. You must. You have to be okay going to places by yourself and also being open to whatever the response or reaction is going to be. Like I said, sometimes it is, you know, weird to get rejected, but you have to put yourself out there to even know that something's going to stick or not.
Right.
And I think a lot of people just wait around and think like, oh, it's going to come, or like wishing and hoping. And I'm like, no, you have to put action behind it. So I'm always an advocate of go versus not go, because if you do, you can at least know that you put yourself out there, but if you don't, you'll always have the regret of what if.
Hmm.
And I
What
don't
did I
like
miss out
Right.
on? I don't like FOMO. I have FOMO for real, so I'll be everywhere. um, so as a Gen Zer, I want to know what advice you have for us millennials.
Hmm.
What can you share with us who are in this space? We're all working in the same space. Obviously, some things we're going to do similarly, but then a lot of stuff we're doing different just
Yeah.
because of our age, our experience, our outlook on life, culture. So, any advice for us? Danielle and I are both millennials.
Yeah.
So,
I think the biggest thing I've noticed, especially when you think about like that gap or tension sometimes the generations have, is like the adaptability and willingness to listen and learn. Because I will say, I was, especially thinking about, just say like, let's start in the corporate space. I was blessed enough to have worked pre-COVID and post-COVID. So I did internships. I had work experiences where I was in 5 days a week, and there was very much a very different work expectation for junior level employees. You have to be there the latest in the room. You need to be there before your boss. You can't, it's a privilege to work from home unless you're senior leadership. That was very much the attitude and the mentality. And not really having as much flexibility. It was more so like work, 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 prove yourself, and this is the culture and it's not changing. And then, I started working and then had to transition to virtual environment. And that's where I started my first jobs. Really, really tough because, again, you need that interpersonal communication and experience and interactions, but it showed me how to adapt. And then from there, the industries honestly had to adapt with it with flexible work from home environments, work from anywhere, remote work. And I think that what I've noticed is sometimes there's still that kind of older school mentality of you have to still work in this way, but that's not the environment and world we live in anymore. So I think there needs to be a willingness on one side, maybe from the millennial perspective, to understand that the work culture is changing and there's a different style that younger employees need, but also younger employees need to show respect and homage to those who, can provide that mentorship and guidance, because that's what I know I've been successful is from the mentors that I've had, and learning from and aspiring to be like people like Robin, and seeing, they're doing great things in their career and they progress in this way. And there's a lot to learn from that. But then also knowing that it's okay to be adaptable and know that the work landscape or life is changing and we can learn from each other. And I think that mutual respect is what is most important. Like the younger folks don't know it all, but the older folks can also learn from, the new times and generations, and we can all learn to adapt and work together and be better, to be quite honest, because there are things on both sides that are benefits and challenges that we could come together to solve very similar problems.
I love that. You hit the nail on the head. As I mentioned during your intro, you're one of my mentees, and that came about in a very sweet way. I love this story. We won't give the full version, but she and I met at homecoming,
Mhm.
and she was like, "Yeah, I know who you are already. I've been following you,
Yes.
and will you be my mentor?" And I'm like, "Sure, of course." But then I found myself leaning on her for advice about how I should transition into new and fresh and just staying, as my mom would say, hip with the times. But very millennial term for me. But I find it helpful to have younger people around me because I don't stay so still. With especially in this business, you have to be able to be new and fresh and come with creative ideas and content, and even the way that people receive and consume news, deliver news is constantly changing. And so if you are apprehensive about those things, you might not be able to survive in this business. And so I've found great comfort in having people like Janay in my circle.
Yeah. We all need each other.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
So my thing, Robin, we're considered the older people now. Dang, that's
We
I said older, as in
we
older than me.
not gonna say all
no
that,
shade.
but
It's no shade now. I'm just like, dang, you just settles in like.
I heard it too. It stung a little bit.
Oh,
I
goodness.
love
You
it.
said we
I love
need
it.
each other.
Not old, just seasoned.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Seasoned is a good word. And listen, y'all are where I'm trying to be. So let's cut all this actually. Because being in your 20s is truly the struggle. And I know y'all know that.
It is, but it does get better, I
Yeah.
promise.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just playing. All right, Janae. Well, we are about to transition into what we call the lightning round.
Okay.
All right. So
Stress.
we are going to ask you some questions. You just first top of mind response. Okay.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So coffee or tea?
It depends on the time of day. I'll say coffee in the morning, tea in the evenings.
Okay.
Mac or PC?
Mac. Even though I did grow up with PCs, Mac all day.
Same. Same. Early bird or late owl or night owl?
Night owl. I wish I wasn't, but I just can't. I actually saw a funny TikTok the other day that was like, when you get the urge to better your life at 3 a.m. and it was like cleaning and like doing the laundry. And I was like, that's really me. I get my best ideas late at night.
That's me too. Danielle is probably like, why is she texting me at 1 a.m.?
That's me.
Robin is definitely a night
And
owl.
I'm like, I don't expect you to respond, but I'm thinking about it now, so I gotta
I
let you
gotta
know.
tell you. Exactly. Before you forget it. That's key.
It's okay. My friends get texted
Oh
at 4
man.
a.m., 4 or 5 a.m. That's the early bird in me. So
Spring or fall?
Fall. For sure.
okay. Beach or mountains?
Mountains. I like water, but I don't really like the sand and the hassle of taking things to the beach. And I also love being around a lot of greenery and like open air and spaces. So I would definitely say the mountains.
You know what? It's not many Black girls who would say that.
I know. And then also the wind too. I'm like, I don't like having to get the sand. Yeah, I just don't like the sand and all
That's
the
true. Yeah. And the humidity, you just gonna poof up and all the things. But yes. Black suit or blue suit?
I think black is classic and you can just do so much with black. Like whether you want to add a pop of color or you want to make it classic or more dressy, I would say that's my default.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Okay. I feel like I already know the answer, but Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Oh, question. Inquiring minds want to know, should we update that one?
I
Should it
don't
say
know
like
though.
Instagram or TikTok?
Maybe, but the thing is, I don't know. It depends on again what range of people y'all have. Because for example, I have Facebook and I keep it to keep up with my family, or it's like the folks that you went to high school with
Mm-hmm.
and different things like that. But I use Instagram like all the time. So, but I can't say that I'm also
Mhm.
on TikTok all the time. Like maybe my younger brother might and my cousins, but even for me, I'm like I still prefer Instagram over TikTok.
Hmm.
So you could
Did
say
you ever?
maybe do all three.
Okay. I like that idea. That's a good idea. Samantha Jones or Olivia Pope?
I don't know because I feel like sometimes I'm living my best Sex in the City life. So
All right. Yep.
actually, I gotta say, yeah, I gotta say Samantha.
All right.
We love Samantha. We love them both.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. We love them both, but I'm like, I think I'm kind of my Sex in the City era, so I'm gonna say Samantha.
Yes. You having a lot of fun adventures. You're curating and hosting events. Definitely Samantha Jones vibe all day.
I love it.
Washington Post or New York Times? Or either. Neither.
I think, well, no, I mean, New York Times, I think both of them actually for different reasons. Like, I think sometimes when I'm reading certain stories, like New York Times, I'll think of like, again, local New York news, maybe like pop culture, versus the Post, like more international news.
Okay.
hmm And are you consuming news in a traditional way? Another Gen Z question. I know a lot of
No.
people are not getting their news, yeah, from
Yeah,
newspapers
I would
and.
say no because one, I mean, print is just phasing out as more and more. Um, but I think for me, it is through social media. Like people will send me articles, or I'll see something on Facebook, or I'll be on Instagram and it'll link out to this story, and then I'll read it that way. So, or even just I have friends who have told me about the rise of like Snapchat news. Like I think NBC has a news series on there that's dedicated to like daily breaking news. So I think for me, it's definitely changed. I will say I do still like reading articles and such, but it's more like the way that I get it front facing is in these more bite size, like a snappy, caption or headline that really attracts my attention, and then it'll drive me to want to read the full story.
Mm-hmm. Extrovert or introvert? I'm pretty sure I know the
I was
answer
about
to
to say,
that.
y'all already know extrovert all day. But I will say, as I'm getting older, I think I'm becoming more of an ambivert because I'm social, but only when I'm around very specific energies or vibes. And there are people that, if they have a very different personality, it could drain me. And I do definitely need that time to recharge. So I think traditionally extrovert, but becoming more of an ambivert every day.
Okay.
Love that.
Yes. All right. So I know you are a fashion girl. So heels, flats, or tennis shoes?
This one's tough because I feel like the New York girls be stepping, so you have to come correct with a boot. So honestly, I would say like a heel or a booty because I have so many friends here, and I feel like the streetwear and the fashion is so eclectic that you get style inspo every single day. So I never used to wear sneakers, but now I'm like, I walk a lot, so I need to have fly sneakers. So now I'm like, okay, I wouldn't say I'm a sneakerhead, but I have more sneakers than I do flats. Because you just need something that's gonna be mobile. But I will say I used to always carry flats when I would wear my heels because you just can't make it. But definitely like a good boot or a good heel.
Yes.
Well, Janay, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I learned even some new things about you. So,
Thank y'all for
thank
having
you.
me. This was really great. And I just love having these spaces and conversations. So thank y'all for even starting this idea, curating this space for us, because I feel like so many Black women in particular have so many things going on at once. And unless you're close friends with them, you don't know your friend is doing all these things. So it's a great way for us to be highlighted as well. So thank you for thinking of me and sharing this space.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. How can people follow you, stay connected with you? Just Janay, 5 Ys.
Yes, that's the best way on Instagram, TikTok, like I mentioned. Not as much on X. It used to be Twitter. But I would say definitely follow me on Instagram, especially if you're local to the New York area, because again, I host, curate, and promote a lot of events. And if you want to, or if you want to just get plugged in, I really love helping make sure that people get connected to the people and the resources that they need. Or just put you on to something new, some new music, a new Black-owned business, a new interesting, trend or something. That's definitely what I like to be known for. So yes, you can find me at Just Janay, JustJanayY, 5 Ys.
And the name of your business, the business you're working with?
Yes, Just Janay Consulting.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you,
Yes,
Janay.
thank y'all so much. I love it.
All right. Well, you all make sure that, again, you continue to stay connected with us. You can follow us at the PR Style Guide on all social platforms. And we look forward to seeing you right back here for our next episode.